Volpintesta, Fashion Illustration Tribe. I have been teaching fashion design since 1997 at Parsons School of Design, which is where I went to school in New York City, 1 year in Paris. Paris really is when I fell in love with international fashion. There was so much, so many countries and cultures living in Paris, and that's remained to be my passion ever since. India, Africa, Europe, Japan, and everything. You'll see in my new book, The Language of Fashion Design, that it's everything. There's so much that I love. There's so much fashion out there, and I always feel that everyone should be represented. So I try to represent everything I can find that I love. There's great design everywhere, and what I love is the differences between all the places, and my hope is that different places will keep their individual flavors, and that individuals will keep their individual flavors, so that fashion will always be multifaceted and exciting as it is, as we are. I'm going to move around here because, yeah, a lot of new things happening here. Okay, first time. So I'm Laura Volpintesta, and at Fashion Illustration Tribe, it's all about illustration, but it's in this setting of kindness and love, not this killer competitive vibe. It's a happy place where we're just grooving on what feels good and really creating our styles, our unique styles. And with my coaching, with all my students, my joy is to bring the joy that I experience in model drawing and designing to you, and also to recognize your unique gifts. You probably already recognize them, you may not, but I've seen so many students over so many years that every time I see any artist working, they tend to jump out at me, their individual voice. And I love to be able to blow on that little flame and watch that voice become stronger and stronger, because certainly when you go out into the industry or in your own business, you want to be, your strengths are there for a reason. They will invite the opportunities that you have. So you really want to develop the strengths the things that you enjoy. You don't want to develop a strength, let's say, working at the computer when that's not what you want to do, because you'll get those jobs. You say, how did I end up here? Let's develop the strengths that are innate to you so that your work always feels like play and joy. Whether I'm designing, whether I'm illustrating fashion figures, or a lot of the work I've done has been also flat sketching and technical drawing, it just so happens that I love that. I've invited that work into my life. And when I see a garment or a model, but even the garments without the models, to me each garment has a life and spirit of its own. I swear, they're like people. They're the shape, the details, the color, it jumps out at me with a personality, and it's always my joy to bring that personality out in the way I draw it. So today I really wanted to let you get some good content about model drawing. I'm sure you're new at that. Maybe you're not new at that, but I find it's always great to get a refresher because it's something I never bore of. Every single time I approach model drawing, I have the thrilling sense of newness. And I took some different models. They just have quite different, but what they all have in common is that I'm using images that are head to toe and standing. And most importantly at all, you should like the image, and it should be an image that you would consider dressing again and again and again. Like I chose all these lingerie and swimwear so that I would have bodies to work from, but always knowing that, oh, I could put a dress on that, I could put pants on that, that could be shorts, that could be a jacket. You know, poses that are really good for showing off clothes. And also they're all frontal, and for starters, actually for starters, not only do I do frontal, but I usually do a static, straight pose. Straight up and down. Notice like there's not a lot of bend through her spine or her torso. But today I'm going to jump forward and just do some poses where she's actually leaning on one leg. Okay, and the reason why I'm using all these different kinds of models is because I really, really encourage in my courses that you will be using models that inspire you, or that represent you, or that represent your ideal client, and not to constantly default to a figure that, it's one thing even to use a very thin, tall fashion model, but then if you take such a model and stretch the legs an extra 3 inches, we don't do that in fashion illustration tribe. It's probably the only rule I stick with, because for real design, it has to work for a body that exists. And if the body really can't exist, if it's super, super, super exaggerated, that's cool, but I think it's a little unhealthy for women's lives. So we're going to stick with any body that could really exist. And certainly we're going to appreciate and enhance all bodies. And my greatest inspiration is to design for your own body, because you've lived in that body. That's probably the best body that you are suited to design for, that you can most understand. Now I'm going to go grab a Woodlyst Graphite pencil. And you may be saying, what's a Woodlyst Graphite pencil? Some of you are in my classes, and if you're in my classes, then you say, oh, here she goes again with the graphite pencil. Woodlyst Graphite, something I discovered in my first years of art training. Oh, this is a 2B. Okay, not very soft. It's a pencil without wood. The great thing about that is you get, instead of a tiny little tip, you get a whole bunch of black tip. So you can actually create large areas of dark, and not necessarily only lines. And also because the wood doesn't start scratching into your paper, kind of tearing it or leaving dents. That's another reason we like to use it. Not a Woodlyst Graphite pencil will break easily if you drop it, so be careful. And this one is 2B. 2B is the hardest pencil I'd like you to use for my beginner classes. You can go up to 9B. B pencils are like smudgy, and they get very dark, and they're messy. They smear, and I love them. So there's a lot of reasons why. I have a lot of strong beliefs about drawing and art development that inform the way I work. And what happens with lost my train of thought. What happens with drawing is, I believe that the way we learn to write, at least in my culture, I really feel this, the way we write A, B, C, D, E, and we started so early in school, it interferes often with the way we draw. We tend to think that drawing could also be symbols and fine lines that are right or wrong. But with drawing, really, it's the greatest thing I learned when I started studying fine arts is that it's shape. So I'm just going to jump right in with this model here. Actually, I'm not going to do this one yet because it's a little bit contrary to some of the rules I'm going to give you. I'm going to start with the medium, middle of the road girl, because one is very thin, one is wider, this one's kind of in between. Okay, what I do first, I like to work on an angled surface. It's much easier on your back and neck. You may be working on a flat desktop. That's okay too. But an angled surface is best. So if you have like a table or a board that you can rest in your lap and lean against a table you're sitting at, it's better than actually drawing on the table. And you could use a little clip if you want to hold your paper onto it. That will give you a great angle. But another thing is, if you stand up, if you're not sitting with a drawing board in your lap, I would stand up so that you can really be in your body, so your drawing becomes a head-to-toe experience. I think energy is something we all love in fashion illustration, and I think getting your whole body into the body brings that life into the illustration. So I'm standing up, and I'm looking at my paper. Now, some of these things have to change because the nature of that I'm filming. I'm not nearly as comfortable as I normally would be, just, if I was working without a camera in front of me. What I'm going to do is always look at your paper head on. So almost like you have a camera and you're aiming to take a picture of something, right? You don't want to look sideways or tilt your paper when you draw. A lot of us write that way. We're not going to draw that way. Okay, and then nice thing to do is feel out the top of your page and feel out the bottom of your page. Now notice I didn't go straight. I want to make sure you're getting some line. Good line. I'm going to just have to draw darker than I usually do. Just pull the light over a bit more. This is why I'm doing my first webinars, to work all this out. Okay, feel out the top of the page and the bottom, and notice I'm not actually on the edge of the page when I say that. I'm leaving a little margin above and below, and just kind of feeling out and then feeling out the space in between. And what this does is it helps me settle into the page. Now remember, we're not aiming for some perfect finished figure at first. It's really, that's going to be, it's like wearing training wheels on your bike for a year and then taking them off and then you're just ready to go. Maybe that's a good analogy, I'm not sure. But the point of that is that you're feeling the whole page, and then you're looking at your model and you're noticing, wait a minute, she's not straight like that. She's more like this. Okay, you start to feel some things. And notice that I kind of repeat, and I'm drawing very lightly, and what I'm doing is I'm feeling. Feeling is the most, I think feeling is the most important thing in our drawing, design, art, life. You know, try to feel first, then act, right? I feel her hip coming out on this one side. And then as a guideline, I'd like you to be aware of where your halfway point is between top and bottom of the page. And make sure that her hip, her crotch, wherever her torso turns into legs, that level is at least halfway up the page, if not more. Okay, so, but not too much more either. Halfway up, if she's in heels, a little bit more, okay? And then what we're going to do, did somebody just come on? Because this has one viewer now. And if you're there, please send me a message in the group chat. I'd love to know if you can see me, if you can hear me, and especially also, just a moment, to know if you have specific questions and whether you can see or hear. I'd love to get specific questions because then we get like a conversation going. Okay. I'm coming back to this, but I'm going to keep looking back for the group chat. And so if I don't see anything, but it looks like someone's gotten onto the call, even though we had a last-minute time change because of my technology issues. Okay. So we have the hip coming out around hip level, all right? Now, I also noticed that her head is tilted, and those little attitudes mean so much. So I'm going to tilt an oval up here for her head. Now notice how I approach drawing ovals. Perfect circles, ovals, forms. I'm using the side of my pencil. I'm holding my pencil in a way you may never have held your pencil before, but I'd like you to explore with it, because the fact that you feel out of control is actually one of the most awesome things, because, right, we're so used to A, B, C, D, like total control. When we see beautiful art, we say, oh, they must have done that with total control. Well, maybe it's good to release control and then see what you can do. Okay, and then what I always teach, okay, I've got this attitude for the head, and I didn't want to get too strict or structured, but I'm going to tell you that this top half of her body is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 heads. So I've got to go 2, 3. I usually teach this another way, and I'm glad I'm doing it a little bit different tonight. And in my courses and in other conversations, I can show you how these proportions relate to the mannequin, the dress form, which I actually have. I don't know if you can see it. It's right over there. But these lines actually correspond exactly to the taped lines that are on the mannequin, representing the fullest part of the body at the bust, the narrowest measurement of the upper body, which is the waist, and the widest measurement, again, which is the hips. So those are all important landmarks when you're designing for fit. And and whether those proportions, sometimes maybe the midsection is actually wider than the hip, et cetera, et cetera. There are many body types. But you have these landmarks that you definitely want to be referring to, so you be aware of them. So as you can see, chin, bust, waist, hip. Okay, so and then actually those same increments, I can do 4 more coming down here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that represents, I'll show you when I build the body, but it's 2 heads to the knee level. So I can make a note of that maybe. Knee, and 2 heads to the ankle. And then up here it was bust, waist, hips. So these are all your landmarks on your body. Okay, so then when I build the body, and this is the really great tool that just makes things so easy, is that one of the biggest problems that comes up with fashion models is people drawing them too skinny. And if they're too skinny, A, they may look a little sick or just far too distorted, or you won't be able to fit any of the clothing detail if it's too thin. You won't have room for collars and pockets and darts. You're going to be trying to squeeze it all into a space that can't be accommodated. So I use these blocks to build the body, and the blocks live inside the figure. And look, they are not narrow. They are almost square. I'm talking about the width and the length of the body, and I'm talking about the hard sections of your body. So let me push this back for a second. There's hard bone here. This is rib cage, and it kind of ends around here. There's hard bone. This whole thing is hard, and it moves as a unit. So I can't move one of my rib cages up and one of them down. The whole thing moves as a block, and that's really powerful. So whenever I draw, if her body's tilting a little bit, this pose really, it doesn't feel like it's tilting. It's really straight. But if it tilts, the whole thing's going to tilt. So this is the upper body block. But if she were to lean this way, the whole block would lean this way. And that's something I want you, just let these little seeds sink in. There's going to be a replay of the webinar. I'll have it up for a few days. Let this stuff sink in. Lower body, same thing. Okay, you have all this mush here. There's a whole bunch of mush, more on some people than on others. And then you have hard bone again, and that's your high hip and low hip, right? And that's a block again. So what happens is that block, also, if it moves all together. If it's straight, it's straight. Okay, but high hip to low hip, that whole pelvis area is a block. And in this pose, you can definitely see that it's tilting this way, right? She's resting on this leg. That's what we call movement. Okay, so I'm going to come back to my model and capture. Remember how I drew this S curve, right, coming out here? That's where that block coming out. And notice that these blocks are wide, and they can be as wide as you want. They can be as narrow as you want too, as long as they're realistic or corresponding to the model. But do you understand how once I drew those blocks, can you see that there's almost a body already? I mean, it's almost too easy. And you can say, oh, you make it look so easy. Why is it so hard? But as you try it enough times, you're going to come to see that there's only so many ways that you can fit this figure on a page. So I'm working with bigger paper for my online classes. I really recommend 8.5 by 11 because you can scan your work in easily, and scanned work is so much better quality, whereas photographed work, the lighting's a problem and many things are a problem. But I'm working large here because this is 14 by 17 paper, because I want to be able, for you to be able to see from the distance. Do you have questions? Comments? Are you there? Can you hear me? All right, I'm gonna keep going. So now I've got a lot of body happening. Or I mean, to me, this is just about everything. The only thing is, one of the biggest challenges and problems people run into is drawing fashion figures that look like they're falling over. And it's terrible to have this like great illustration, but she's tipping over because it shows that something you don't get there. So biggest things to place are the head, the feet, and the blocks. And all of that is it's a map making, and it's a relationship, and you sort of want to plot all those parts out before you fill anything else in. And it's okay if you do it wrong, because you can't correct something if you haven't done it right or wrong. Okay, so first you try it, you put the feet down, the head, you look at it all, and then you say, oh, no, that leg moves out, and then you correct yourself. But you've got to start. And that's what I recommend. Actually, you start with these very light, soft lines, so you only get dark when you feel secure. And this is something that takes time to develop, so don't worry. And I'm pressing hard here so that you can see from a distance. Okay, so then I've got head is in place, these blocks are in place. I'm going to drop a plumb line. Plumb line is a tool. It's something that you could say doesn't really exist. It only exists in your imagination. So how does it exist? It's pure vertical in your line of vision. So what that means is parallel to the edge of your paper, and it's just a pure vertical going straight through the center of her collarbones or her chin. It doesn't matter where you drop it from. Just remember that once you drop it, actually, I already have one on my page because I started with a pure vertical. But use that line to notice, this hip is farther from the plumb line, this hip is closer. Biggest thing you want to figure out is where are the feet in relation to the plumb line. And I can see very clearly here that the plumb line's landing right between her ankles. So that's something I want to make sure I really capture, and I'm going to do that right now. So I'm going to build my feet by sort of blocking them into space as these tall sort of triangles, right? And then thigh, I know, is wider at the top and narrower towards the knee, but not super narrow. Most people think that the knee is this pinched area. It's not a pinched area. It's big. It's almost, if you look at your knee, it's like a softball or a grapefruit. It's not like a pebble. So just like the waist, because it's an area where everything bends, people tend to assume that it's pinched because they feel this movement of energy in a sharp angle, but it's not pinched. Same thing happens with knees. It's just a change of direction. It's a dynamic area. So notice how I built the thigh. I know where I'm going because the foot's already here. Because it's a frontal foot in heels, I can really simplify it right now as a sort of a triangle with a flat bottom. And that flat bottom represents, where she's standing on the floor. Now for the calf is again a long ellipse. Now both for the calf and the thigh, it's like an ellipse, but it's wider at the top and narrower at the bottom. And actually this model's coming out taller and skinnier than I've done in a long time. Now you're probably, if you're saying to yourself, but you're just drawing a big black blob, fine, you can say that. You can even type it into the chat on the right hand side and tell me you think that's not what you came here to learn. But like I said, this is the training wheels. To me, this is taking a hunk of clay and creating this body in 3D form out of clay first. And I will show you how to clean that up. But the most limited drawings I've seen in my classes is when people only approach with the outside lines to create the body. And what I'm really passionate about is building the body from the core out. I don't know if that's just my personality or because I love dance. I love feeling in my body, and I want your bodies to feel three-dimensional and sculptural. Okay, so we got one leg, and notice there's no such thing as a straight leg. So if I need to simplify if I'm mapping, what I call mapping out the figure, I'll start with a straight line that represents the core of that leg and then build up on it. But the actual leg, by the time you build up all these what I call muscle masses and forms, there's really nothing straight about it. If anything, it's another sort of an S curve. Okay. The other leg, now here's another thing, is that you need to have hips wide enough to fit two legs onto them. So often people use these super narrow hips and then they can't fit legs onto them. Hips need to be wide enough to have these leg joints fit into the pelvis and have two legs coming out of it. So your hips are so much wider than anyone gives them credit for in fashion business. Even a narrow hip is quite wide, so give it some credit. I'm going to start shaping out the other leg, noticing the amount of space between the knees, noticing again that it's wider at the top of the leg, and actually that the width in the hips happens more below this block than it does on this block. Look at your own body. If you're a girl, probably same for a man. The hips, where everything's bone, is the widest part of your hips is below the bone, just below the bone at the top of the leg. At least that's how it is for me. And of course, there's all different body types that we design for. But here we go with another long ellipse that's wider at the top, narrower towards the ankle. Okay, and from where you are, actually, this does look pretty cool. Because my table's slanted, her legs look longer on your screen than they do here. When I lift it up, you'll see, yeah, still pretty darn long. Yeah, I got to work on that. I'm so busy looking at the screen here. I don't like them being so long. I'm going to round out stuff here. And then what happens, so remember that the block that I use for the pelvis and for the rib cage, they don't touch. I fill that in at the end. I mean, if you look now, right, it's kind of something that you just feel out at the end. You can blend it. Now, certainly when you approach a model drawing, you're going to work a lot faster than this as well. It's kind of unnatural for me to drag it out so slowly. But there are so many things I can tell you along the way that kind of fill in the blanks for you. And there's something you take away this way as well. So, you know, you might spend 5 or 10 minutes on a sketch. Actually, the less time you spend, the better in the beginning, because you're more likely to get the essence of the energy of the sketch. And if you spend a really long time in the beginning, things will become very disjointed and sort of stiff. And did you notice how I started? My drawing's been working sort of the whole page the whole time. I did the head and the feet like first. It's a really good exercise to work the whole page all the time. So once you kind of feel like your work is done in a certain area, or you're not sure where to proceed, then you go somewhere else, but keep moving. You don't always have to do that, but I think the exercise of constantly moving builds energy into your drawing. Something to think about. So even if you have to hover somewhere, like just kind of be like, where am I going to go now? And keep yourself moving actually gives you energy. Now here's one last thing I always like to describe. I don't want to, wow, it's already been half an hour. Okay, yes, I don't want you to spend half an hour on your first drawing. I talked to you about the upper body block. Much like the mannequin, let me just tell you, upper body block is bone, right? It's all bone, 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 bone. So this whole thing moves one way or the other, all moves in sync at once. But shoulders can do whatever they want. So many people with fashion illustration will always say, well, look for the angle of the shoulders. That can be a good clue, but it's not a foolproof clue, because oftentimes if she's standing straight, but let's say she has her hand on her hip, shoulder will go up, but the block is stable. Okay, it's a lot different when the whole block moves. So always double check, put yourself in the pose. That's another reason I say to draw while you're standing. Remember that you're, put yourself in the pose and notice, wait, is it just my shoulder that's up, or is my whole upper body leaning? Okay. Now, shoulders, I think of as like tennis balls, is what I call them. So I'll take where'd my puppet picture go? Here we go. And I'll pretend I have a ruler that I lay across the top. And I'll pay attention. Wow, it didn't even show up. So funny. And ask myself, is that a pure vertical or is it an angle? So this particular one is not a pure vertical, pure horizontal. Pure horizontal. So I'm going to build those shoulders on. Again, they're little spheres, little tennis balls, as is the bust. And I can't give you rules about shoulders or bust. Some women have wider shoulders, some have narrower shoulders, some have a bust that's higher, lower, smaller, closer together. All those things are either your client, your customer, your ideal woman, the person, or your inspiration at the moment, right? So putting the bust onto that upper body block. You can barely see it from where you are, but I can see it. And then I'm going to map out the arms using sticks. And then I'm going to flesh them out using, again, ellipses to try to get the same length and width. You can see where things change at the elbow. They don't pinch, they just change. Try to get the size and shape of the hand, but not all the fingers and all that. We're not there yet. We're trying to get a holistic, build a whole shape of a fashion silhouette that we love. I told you we were going to do 3 figures, but I can tell you already that we're not going to do 3 figures tonight. 1, maybe 2, because time keeps ticking. And I'm perfectly happy to do the other ones in future webinars. So now I'm just filling in the blanks. Still drawing with the side of my pencil, and I'm not drawing with my fingers. I'm drawing with my whole arm, which just gives a lot of energy. And you have got to let yourself mess up royally before you'll get where you really want to go. Like, let yourself laugh at yourself. Let yourself out of your comfort zone. Let it go. Oh, jeez. I had to say that, right? I've been hearing that Frozen song so much this year that I had to say let it go. Let it go. Let it come out really, really bad if it has to. Fine, because then you pick up and you go again and you're somewhere else. Okay? Now, something I didn't do, notice what I didn't do today. I didn't use an eraser. Easy for me, maybe, right? But if you convince yourself, if you just don't have erasers, look, no erasers on the pencil. Just don't have them around. It's like Oreos. If they're around, you're going to want to eat them. If you have erasers, you're going to want to use them. Don't buy them. And it will teach you, it will force you to train yourself to work with a light hand. Light, 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 light. And then as you get more confident, as your map, you start to see through the fog. You can start to see the figure emerging out of this little cloud. And you get darker and darker and darker as you get more secure. And those of you who are watching, because I can see that you're watching, if you want to leave a question, please do. If you want to introduce yourself, say where you're logging in from, please do. If you have topics you'd like me to cover in the future, please do. And if you want to know why I have no makeup on, because I had a whole bunch of crazy things roll out from my business today, phone calls, classes forming, etc., etc., and I just, usually I like to fix myself up for these. Okay, back to business. So here's my body. I didn't erase, and I didn't actually draw any lines. And this is, I think this is where I'd like to leave it today, is that the lines, what is a line? Does anyone want to say what they think a line is, or what they feel a line is, what their experience of lines is? A line is an edge between two forms. The lines don't necessarily exist as one-dimensional skinny things. They're actually edges of things. So in this drawing, what's happened is the lines are just where the shape ends. Your line is attached to everything that's inside. And then the other edge is also a line. So the lines are the edges of shapes. Just let that sink in. And I actually feel that we've done so much. And what you should do is take some figures. I wish you would share some of your results. You know, I have a Facebook group for my paid students in my private classes, but I'm thinking of opening another Facebook group for everyone who's just studying on their own and wants to exchange ideas, exchange their work, and share the experience, because you could be uploading your pictures. In my online classes, we do upload our pictures, and we have different ways that we can share them. We have discussion areas in every lesson where you can scan and upload your work and then talk with your peers about it. And that's one of the most powerful things that happens in the class. Excuse me. I can't come right now. Give me 5 minutes. Hey, 5 minutes, sweetie. Okay. And what happens is, in seeing your peers, you kind of develop a sense of who you are that you wouldn't have had without seeing your peers. In seeing your peers and hearing their feedback, you develop a much stronger sense of who you are, because you have this captive audience of people who are struggling with the same techniques and material that you are. So they're really tuned in to what you're doing, and they'll tell you what's not clear that they wish was, or when you describe what you've done in your design, they will say, they'll tell you, oh, I heard you say da da da, but I didn't know that till you said it. And then you'll think, oh, how could I say that more clearly? You'll get ideas from your peers about, you know, when someone else has a strength that you don't have but you admire, you'll assimilate some of that, and vice versa. And in every class, I really feel everybody, I can see it, everybody has a strength, a different, totally different kind. It could be the presentation. It could be the fabrics or the colors or the storytelling or the drawing skill or the concepts or just the technical. Everyone's got something, and I love when all these souls come together and helping each other along. In my classes, you can also study privately. You can certainly just sign up and just do the material. You could also just sign up, and if it's coaching, you'll sign up, but you'll also have Skype calls with me. So there's these different levels of study. The one I'm most excited about is so many people said that I do a long course because every step builds. It's really important to me that you get to see all these seeds plant and grow at the end. But some people say, oh, 12 weeks just seems like too much of a commitment, which for me at the university, we always do 15 weeks. So I'm really used to that rhythm. But what my new offering is a 7-week class. So anyone who really feels that, you know, it's too much of a commitment to jump in on more, or maybe it's even the financial burden, you can get in 7 weeks through the model drawing, some watercolor techniques, and then design your own swimwear cover-up kind of collection. And I have a few enrolled in that right now. I know that the classes are great. What I don't know is how to reach everyone out there who needs them. But I've had students all over the globe already. I've had students in India, in Zambia, in Australia, Canada, New Jersey, New York, and it makes my heart sing. So please, if you're enjoying this content, share it if you know people who are into this business, this world. And again, yes, this fashion industry could be in fashion business, you could be in fashion. You might be doing this for the pure love and joy of it. And that's enough for me, as well as I can give you all the professional support that I can give you, which is quite a lot. But you can come here for any reason. The point here is that you can get the information you want and really bring your voice out and work in a way that is kind to you, where you really feel people who take my course, if you follow all of your assignments, you're going to really, really know this stuff. You're going to feel like you know it from the inside out. I've known of a lot of people who even went through prestigious fashion programs, but they kind of got spit out on the other side and felt like they didn't get, like they missed something. They missed that part. I'm here to totally focus on that part so that you can just fantasize, get your drawings to whatever speed you want and be creating beautiful fashion art. I can teach you how to paint figures like we did today, but take you through that whole process, and then not only to paint figures, but to create groups of figures wearing your designs in color with flats presented, create your portfolio. Even my level 1 class is has every skill you need to create your portfolio in the 12-week class. So whether you continue to work with me to get a lot more guidance or not, you would still have all those tools that you need. And I'm so proud that I can offer that. And I'm so proud that I have students who have their children sleeping in another room, who are making their dreams come true right at home and feeling so excited. It's such an honor and gift to work with everybody. So the last half hour I was going to open up for Q&A, but nobody's speaking up. That's okay, because I messed up the schedule, technology, but I'm getting the hang of it. I'll post this for a few days. If you're on my email list, you'll get the link. And I'd also I'll send you a link also for a little checklist that will kind of review some of the things I said, so that you can have a little checklist to check your drawing. There's some key points that help review what we did today in case you didn't take notes. And I hope that you'll join me for the next webinar. I hope to do one Friday night. And I'm very excited to get feedback from you guys, what kind of topics, if it's more model drawing, if it's faces, if it's details in clothes, if it's how to draw elastic, if anything, if it's talking about textiles, I'm here and I'd love to do it. So it's www.fashionillustrationtribe.com, and you can subscribe anywhere on there, except the landing page may not have an opt-in box, but I think even that page does. Just to stay on the email list. I send them rather regularly, but I don't like zap your inbox all the time. I just don't do that. And I'll let you know when I have classes. I'll let you know when there's cool things happening out there in the world that I want you to know about. And viewer who joined today, I'm so glad you were here. I love doing this because it feels so much more alive. I know that the more comfortable I get with it, I'm going to be cracking jokes and being goofy and all the stuff I do in a live class that I may not do in a regular old video. So thank you for joining me. Please let me know if you enjoyed the content, if there's things that didn't work, things you want to know more about, okay? Thank you. And is there anything else? Really just to subscribe. If you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you'll know when I have Google Hangouts coming, I believe, if you follow me on Google+. But if you're on my email list at fashionillustrationtribe.com, then I'll also be announcing webinars there, and I hope to have guest speakers coming in soon too. So thanks for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you. Bye.